It's been 2 months since Bungie Studios' Destiny was released to the world with incredibly high expectations, possibly to the point of being unreasonable. While I won't go as far as to say that Destiny was the most incredible gaming experience so far this gen, it has definitely been one of the more engrossing and addictive experiences so far this year. I've lost track of how many hours I've spent playing Destiny since its launch, but I'm pretty confident it's a number I would be embarrassed to mention at my family's Thanksgiving dinner. But I can say there was never a moment where I felt I was wasting my time. It was the exact opposite, actually. I kept losing track of time. Because we've spent so much time with Destiny, I believe Ben and I are prepared enough to bring our review and progress to a close.
It's been suggested that Destiny is the best 7 out of 10 game ever created, due to the fact that, despite its issues, it's a game that is incredibly hard to put down. While I understand the thinking behind this statement, it's not one that I completely agree with. Games are about escaping to new worlds, stepping into the shoes of fantastical characters, and most importantly, fun. That's why in the end, Destiny is so much more than just the best 7 out of 10 game ever created. If fun is to be the defining characteristic by which we judge our video game entertainment, which in my opinion is absolutely how it should be, then it's the barometer by which they should be measured. Does Destiny have its flaws and quirks? Absolutely. But is it fun as all hell in spite of its blemishes? You're damn right it is. Like Brent, it's a game I've played for countless hours, and I see that trend continuing for the foreseeable future.
With all the hype surrounding Bungie's Halo series, I was pretty excited to experience the narrative of Destiny, hoping for unforgettable characters and memorable moments. While Bungie nailed it in terms of creating a universe that leaves me wanting more and wondering what awaits us as expansion packs begin rolling out in December, the lackluster story and rather droll characters left me feeling somewhat disappointed overall from a narrative perspective. If you expect gamers to grind through your campaign, I think it's important to make sure that you give them a reason to care about it. Yes, there's plenty of loot that's enticing enough to keep most people grinding, but there are gaming purists out there that expect an engaging tale to keep them thinking along the way. I like to think I was following the story the best I could, but there were many times where I found myself asking, why are the Vex shooting at the Fallen again? Or why was that information that I just extracted from the computer so valuable again? There are some pretty epic missions along the way that help bolster the story, whether it was dicing up Fallen using a sword while in third-person perspective, or battling what seemed like an endless horde of Vex on Venus. It's just a shame that for every memorable mission, there were 3 or 4 ensuing missions that were far less interesting. Thankfully, the gameplay of Destiny and the conversation with friends while playing more than made up for the rather generic story. The gunplay is top-notch, coordinating with friends to bring down bosses is incredibly rewarding, and using special melee abilities and superpowers never gets old. On the looks and sounds front of Destiny, the game looks and runs stunningly well, even when you're being bum-rushed by speeding thralls and teleporting Vex. Not once did I ever experience any frame rate dips or screen tearing. Technically speaking, Destiny is quite impressive. Transitioning from open servers with many other players doing their own thing into your own private server that features the mission you and your fire team are currently tasked with is seamless. The graphics look great, and the lighting looks appropriate with natural-looking shadows. The weapons and explosions all have their own unique sound, and the ambiance and look of each planet is immersive and a sight to behold. Never once did I feel like I had seen something or been somewhere similar to on a previous planet. The soundtrack is epic as well, adding even more tension to some of the game's most fierce firefights. Before Destiny, I had never spent much time with the Bungie production, but it's clear to me that they excel at presentation and creating amazing worlds.
Brent's dead on in terms of Destiny's technical prowess and presentation elements. We've discussed the buttery smooth gameplay present in Destiny in previous videos, but it bears repeating here as we wrap up our discussion of the game. This game runs beautifully on the PlayStation 4, and I've yet to experience anything even remotely resembling a frame rate stutter or screen tear. It's worth noting that in this day and age of 1080p and 60 frames per second, Destiny runs at a gorgeous 1080p, with a rock-solid frame rate of 30 FPS, and the game is all the better for it, honestly. Not once have I thought to myself, man, I really wish this game ran at 60 frames per second. The game is fast and responsive in all of its facets, from the competitive multiplayer focus of the Crucible to the cooperative-based strike missions. There's something to be said for technical stability and flawless execution. I don't know that I've played a more sound shooter in recent memory. From a purely nuts and bolts gameplay perspective, Destiny is the cream of the crop in the first-person shooter space. Shooting always feels great, each gun has a distinct feel, and the moment-to-moment gameplay is exciting. In terms of the story, as we've noted the past few weeks, the narrative as a whole leaves you unsatisfied. Even after completing the game's admittedly convoluted campaign, I'm still left with a number of questions regarding exactly what was transpiring. Like Brent, outside of the game's premise involving the Traveler, the Guardians, and the light versus the darkness, I couldn't definitively tell you one way or another what exactly happened over the course of the game's story missions. That said, I still feel like Destiny is unique in the fact that the game's unfocused and confusing story doesn't severely impact my enjoyment of the game. As Brent made mention of, the world that Bungie has created in Destiny is superb. It's a rich and engrossing sci-fi sandbox to play in, and the potential for further exploration is limitless. Destiny's nature as an MMO-esque, always-online shooter all but precludes the game from having the kind of epic narrative we're used to seeing in Bungie's Halo games. An open-ended, non-linear story and nameless characters are an expected part of the experience. But I always find myself wanting to spend time in this future version of Earth. I remain hopeful that we'll see Bungie experiment with storytelling as they continue to build and expand upon Destiny's foundation. And I'd love to see them try to tell a smaller, think 3 to 5 hours, more focused narrative story within this world, possibly through an expansion pack, or even give episodic storytelling a whirl. It sounds like they'll be tinkering with their narrative formula in the game's first expansion pack, The Dark Below, with the advent of quests, so we'll see how things play out from here.
I will be the first to admit that Bungie served me up a delicious plate of crow after spending most of my pre-launch writing off the multiplayer component because of my past, albeit limited, experience with Halo. The gameplay looked familiar, and because of that, my focus was entirely on the campaign and cooperative aspects prior to launch. It's not the deepest multiplayer component you'll find on either the Xbox One or PlayStation 4, but for what it does offer, it's still pretty entertaining and intense. Despite these odd missions, and like the story mode, everything is made tolerable by great controls, frantic pacing, and excellent level design. Whether or not it'll be enough to pull you away from the other more feature-rich multiplayer-centric games releasing over the coming months ahead remains to be seen.
I have some other games I'm working on covering for the site here at Short Pause, and I sat down the other day to play one of them. The game had an update that was downloading, so I decided to jump into the Crucible while I was waiting for the game to update. 3 hours later, in the wee hours of the morning, I had to stop telling myself just one more round. The gameplay found within Destiny's competitive multiplayer mode is incredibly addicting, and every time I turn it on I'm in danger of losing large portions of my day to its brand of PvP action. The reason the Crucible is so successful stems from the way in which everything you do in Destiny is connected. Experience, loot, and progression is all singularly tied to your character, and everything you do in one mode, i.e. the Crucible, directly affects the other modes and game types in the game. It's this design decision that encourages you to mine and explore all that Destiny has to offer, especially when it comes to the multiplayer action found in the Crucible, as there are some pretty sweet items available to those disciplined enough to persevere. While the multiplayer suite may not be as detailed as some of those found in other games, like Brent alluded to, what's here is terrifically entertaining and extremely well done. Bungie's multiplayer design expertise is fully on display here, and the variety in maps is nice. Personally, I'm the type of multiplayer gamer who latches onto one mode they connect with best. This would be the domination-inspired control game type in Destiny for myself, and plays said mode exclusively. So the lack of a more extensive list of available modes doesn't particularly bother me, but I can see how this could negatively affect others. Salvage and competitive arms are entertaining game types that appear occasionally, and I'd love to see them become a part of the permanent rotation. I anticipate the Crucible will only continue to grow and expand in the weeks and months ahead, and my guess is it will look quite a bit different in 6 months' time.
The one multiplayer aspect that will definitely bring me back for more, however, is the co-op gameplay. I'll say it for the final time, Destiny is an incredibly fun game when you're playing with friends. I'd even go as far as saying that I prefer it over the co-op featured in the Borderlands games, and I absolutely love Borderlands. The strike missions alone are my favorite co-op event, mainly because they are lengthy missions that vary as you progress further, and they feature some truly challenging bosses that will require you to work with your team if you're going to have any chance of coming out victorious. The fact that Bungie will no doubt be adding strike missions through the lifespan of Destiny is reason enough to purchase the expansion pass that is currently available. I'm only at level 25 right now, so I can't speak to the Night and Fall missions or Vault of Glass raid just yet, but I consider that a plus because if I'm enjoying my time playing random Vanguard strike missions over and over again, it thrills me knowing that I have yet to access some of the biggest missions that Destiny has to offer.
I'm a huge fan of cooperative play in Destiny as well. The various modifiers placed on strike missions as part of Destiny's endgame keep things exciting, and I always have fun tackling a particularly challenging mission with Brent. Speaking of Destiny's endgame, I have a better handle on things now that I've spent a few weeks post level 20. Leveling up and obtaining better weapons and armor is quite the grind, but I can't deny that I'm having a good time trying to secure some legendary gear. I'll admit that the reward loop can sometimes be frustrating, as I was seemingly stuck at level 21 for what seemed like forever, trying to find better armor with higher light values. But there's no denying that Destiny has tapped into that part of the brain that secretes high levels of reward-influenced dopamine. I can't help but feel excited every time I get that upgraded helmet that finally allows me to level up. Level 26 still eludes me, but the Vault of Glass continues to be the proverbial carrot at the end of the stick, driving me to level up my character, as I can't wait to experience all that Destiny's first raid has to offer.
Destiny is not a perfect game. The story kind of fizzled out towards the end, and I really didn't enjoy playing the game solo. But at the end of the day, it's the addictive cooperative gameplay, surprisingly fun Crucible multiplayer component, and incredible presentation that make Destiny a damn great game. It's extremely fun with friends, and it's a game that's hard as hell to put down. I'm looking forward to what Bungie will do over the coming months to expand on such a promising concept because they have created a universe that has the potential to feature stories and other gameplay ideas that may propel the game to new heights and possibly hitting those ridiculously high expectations after all.
When it comes down to it, I'm not sure I've played a game more this year than Destiny. There have been some great gaming experiences this year for sure, but I've had the most fun with Destiny. While the game definitely has its flaws, it's the rare title that rises above its imperfections to still offer a stellar gaming experience. The story is unfocused and confusing, some of the missions are repetitive, and the loot system still feels like it's not rewarding enough. But much of this becomes an afterthought behind Destiny's extremely polished gameplay, beautifully expansive world, addicting multiplayer, and cooperative-based design. If entertainment and fun are the chief barometers by which we measure our gaming experience, which, again, is how it should be, then Destiny succeeds in this respect wholeheartedly. Bungie has an ambitious plan for the future of their always connected shooter, and I can't wait to see where things go from here.